Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out King Charles built a town and it surprised everyone. What?
King Charles did the unthinkable and built a completely new town, proving that building
What?
beautifully is still possible. The name of the town? Poundbury. It was a daring experiment and many thought it was going to fail, but instead the town became a huge success. But how? I traveled to this newly built place twice to discover its secrets and even interviewed the very master planner who designed it. You will hear the incredible story of how a visionary planner and a future king collaborated on this unique town, turning the king's vision for a harmonious, beautiful Britain into reality.
Wow.
We will
Wait, I'm sorry.
discover how this urban experiment was built, even though many believed it would fail, and how it became a thriving, popular place to live, proving all its critics wrong. In this video I will also reveal the 6 design secrets that led to Poundbury's success. But we'll also look at what could perhaps be improved. Even better, we'll see how Poundbury even leads to exciting new developments elsewhere. The ideas behind Poundbury are spreading. So, let's get started.
What a hilarious name. Poundbury. I have not heard of this before. It seems very Kim Jong-il-ish, North Korean, or like those big cities that China builds out and nobody lives in. Poundbury. Okay. Wow. Something about the way the streets are, it's very clear. So I'm curious to know if there was anything here before Poundbury. Oh, so that's it right there. And it's next to this other city, Dorchester. Okay. Dorchester. It's near the coast. I want to go here. Look at this line. Is that natural? Zoom in. It is. Oh, what if I drop a little dude there? Can I see what's up? Show me. Oh, wow. Britain's beautiful, y'all. I say it all the time. Look at that. Poundbury. Look at it. It looks like it's been there forever. It looks... When they say he built it, what do they mean exactly? I guess the video will tell us. It looks like it's been there for a long time to me. Green grass. Beautiful. Iconic. Very British looking, The style of it's very British. Okay, let's check this out. Poundbury.
It's autumn, and once again I'm traveling to an edition of the IMCL Congress. Only this time it's not in Paris, but in a very special place in England. A new town developed right next to Dorchester. And that town is called Poundbury. This new development in the stunning Dorset landscape now has around 4,100 inhabitants. That's a lot less than Le Plessis-Robinson, which you might know from one of my previous videos. When you walk around the streets, the town looks surprisingly normal. You wouldn't even notice it is new, and that is exactly its strength. It's just a pleasant place, without many eyesores, or buildings that scream for attention. Everything is built with beauty and harmony in mind. The town was the initiative of not just a regular developer, but of the current King of England, His Royal Highness King Charles III. If you thought that this somehow meant it was easy to create this town, think again. As you will learn in this video, the very existence of this town is almost a miracle, as there were so many obstacles to create it like it is today. But before all that, we need to look at the reason why this town was built in the first place. And for that, we have to look at the king and his vision for Britain.
It does seem like it would be an easy thing for the future king to build a town. But if he's trying to do it fair, in a fair way, you gotta buy the land, I guess? Permits? Building permits? Sewage system stuff? I wonder how much it relies on Dorchester's doorstep.
During his life, Prince Charles saw how his beloved country was changing rapidly. Britain's cities and countryside were transforming, and not in a good way. Pristine landscapes were torn apart by motorways, soulless industrial areas encroached on peaceful meadows, and in the cities, charming neighborhoods were bulldozed to be replaced by grimy, low-quality flats. Instead of streets lined by terraced houses, people were cramped in stark, depressing housing estates, with anonymous elevators and galleries, leading to more isolation and ripping apart communities. And the same happened in historical inner-city areas. Even though plenty of cities escaped the Blitz, few cities escaped the bulldozer. Many city centers in Britain were ravaged, with hostile experiments in concrete disrupting the harmonious urban fabric. All of this was the product of modern planning practices and architecture, in the name of progress. and approved by city councils that wanted something new and experimental. Many of these experiments, though, would soon deteriorate so badly that they had to be torn down after just a few decades, making them incredibly unsustainable. The few cities that did escape more or less intact, like York or Bath, became tourist attractions. It was this wave of unsustainable ugliness and inconsiderateness that alerted a young Prince Charles. Silently, he observed this nightmare unfolding in slow motion, until he could no longer hold himself and had to speak out. Prince Charles was getting more and more annoyed with how Britain was defaced, until he felt he just had to act. In 1980,
That's reminding me of another video I reacted to about Sheffield. The the I love you graffiti in Sheffield. It was painted on this gigantic brutalism architectural apartment building, similar to what they're talking about now. There's a lot of those around Britain, I guess. There's a lot in the United States too. I like that King Charles, Prince Charles at the time, saw this coming, you know? I like that he was aware enough to see how those isolating living conditions would make people sad. I like that. I like that about him.
with how Britain was defaced, until he felt he just had to act. In 1982, the National Gallery in London planned to expand onto Trafalgar Square, with a design by Aarons, Burton and Corlick architects. It looked a bit like this, and Prince Charles did not like it. It was 1984 when Prince Charles gave a speech that would become legendary, and that would can the proposal for the National Gallery. He described the building as follows.
What is proposed is like a monstrous carbuncle on the face of a much-loved and elegant friend.
The British architecture community was shocked. Soon they banded together in opposition to the Prince of Wales, but the future king wouldn't budge. Far from it. In 1988, the prince took another big leap and launched a documentary and later a book called A Vision of Britain. In this, he poured his love for the crafts and the human-scaled, beautiful Britain which countless generations had worked so hard for to create. He also criticized the treatment of well-functioning historical city districts, and how the opinions of the mass of ordinary people were just ignored. But even this would not be enough to turn the tide. The world needed an example of what could be, proof that an alternative was actually possible.
So he wrote a whole book for this, and it still didn't work. What was that book called again? A Vision of Britain, 1988. You can still get a copy for $25 on Amazon. In 1989, Prince Charles published A Vision of Britain, a personal view of architecture. So it was specifically about architecture. A book promoting traditional over modernist architecture. He called for an architecture which could please the more traditional tastes of ordinary people. Prince Charles's opinions generated extensive positive feedback by the audience, and his ideas fueled an architectural debate for several years, forcing many architects to reevaluate and clarify their views on modernist architecture. I mean, it's frickin' beautiful. I think he was right, y'all. I think he was right.
He decided that if he couldn't beat the planners, architects and builders, he should join them. So around the same time that he created his vision of Britain, the future king decided to create a town of his own.
Nice.
The prince had lands near Dorchester, tied to his title to the Prince of Wales, the Duchy of Cornwall. It is a private estate that was established by Edward III in 1337 to provide independence to his son and heir, Prince Edward.
Oh.
It would fund the charitable and private activities of the Prince of Wales and his family for centuries to come. Of course, the prince also needed a brilliant mind who could shape his ideas for a new town into an actual plan. And
so did he already owned the land? Is that what they're saying? This was like traditionally his family's land? I think that's what they're saying.
There was one person who could turn his vision into reality.
Leon Creer.
When the Prince of Wales, when he made his speech to architects in 1984,
that hair is like
and
an optical illusion.
England, for weeks and weeks, people would talk about architecture, and that he was right, including architects and Foster's associates and even Rogers. They made declarations that as a result of this speech, they would change their policy, their design policy towards something more civic or something more classical.
In 1988, Leon Creer was appointed to work on the concept for a town, which would become Poundbury.
He said, "No, you don't have to explain it. I know it all. Would you want to be my consultant? about architecture and urban design. I said, well, why not? But then a year later, I became head of a team which had already been responsible for being involved with the project before, which he didn't like. And I remember when we first sat around the table with the planning company who had looked after the project before, the prince said, Leon is now he's going to take over that job. And then the head of this company, Drivers Jonas company, Christopher Jonas, he looked like Dr. Spock. But he said, of course, we will take on board what Leon tells us. And so the prince banged the table very loudly and said, you are not going to take on board. You are going to do what Leo tells you.
Oh, dang, Chuck.
Leon Creer had a clear vision
Banged
for
on the
Poundbury.
table?
The town would not be a simple extension of Dorchester, but an autonomous new settlement. It would have one town centre, but also local village centres, as the town would consist of multiple smaller communities. Between the local village centres and the town centre would be attractive pedestrian routes. The village centres had some basic functions to make sure everything was accessible within a 10-minute walk.
Nice.
The plan was divided in a number of phases. The first phase bordered Dorchester directly. It was built in the early to mid-90s, and it has a more diverse vernacular architecture and windy roads. By now the trees have grown and the buildings have gotten some patina. The second phase was much larger, with 900 dwellings. After this the southwest quadrant followed, then Queen Mother Square, and then the northeastern quadrant, which is almost finished.
Oh, it's still
One
being
quadrant
built?
is yet to be built, the northwest quadrant, which should be completed in 2026. A number of different architects worked on designs for the buildings, like Ben Pentreath, George Amar Smith, Quinlan and Francis Terry, and John Simpson.
Okay.
During the creation of Poundbury, Leon Creer and the Prince faced some huge and sometimes bizarre challenges. It began with an internal struggle between the Prince and his very own team. There were faulty project revenue calculations, and even threatening calls of an influential entrepreneur who didn't want competition by a Poundbury supermarket. At some point, Leon was finally firmly in place as lead designer and things seemed to go more easy. But that's when the bureaucratic hurdle started. From opposing views on street design to unlogical parking schemes for the center, to opposition against the towers and the impact they would have on the surrounding landscape. One after the other hurdle was thrown up. Then there were budget constraints, which limited the options for the paving of the streets, and the sudden disappearance of a key manager during the 2008 financial crisis. But nothing could stop Poundbury from getting built.
Okay.
Slowly but surely, one by one, the phases of Poundbury were completed. As the town was getting built, it had to face another kind of opposition. The constant sneers of the media and architects. Poundbury was supposed to be the toy town of a prince who had lost all touch with reality. It was an experiment doomed to fail, a kitsch Disneyland. However poisonous the journalists, architects and their hit pieces, they couldn't change the fact that Poundbury was starting to look like an enormous success. Apart from one final phase, most of Poundbury is now completed. The reason that it succeeded is very simple. There was strong demand for what was getting built, and people simply loved the homes and the atmosphere of the town.
Nice.
Poundbury became so lucrative even, that it became another reason to attack the project. The success of Poundbury must have made the architects who called it kitsch and mock even more angry, as it proved that people simply preferred the very thing they hated so much. The funniest thing about Poundbury is how normal it feels, for the most part at least. Queen Mother Square is a bit more of a spectacle. Both the old and the newer parts are very charming. I especially love the Woodlands Crescent. With its fully grown trees in the park, it's a hopeful glimpse in Poundbury's future when all the trees have matured. Also, Poundbury has sparked similar developments that built on the same principles, like in Newquay and Truro. And thanks to Poundbury, the architects working on it were involved in many other projects. All over Britain, in fact. So in the end, it seems that the King's vision has become a success and is spreading. Just look at the many projects by Adam Architecture or Ben Pentreath, and you see the beginnings of a new way of building cities. So now it's time to dive into the secrets of Poundbury's success.
Okay, hang on. Before we go any further, I want to know how much this all cost, because that seems expensive. £98 million per year? Okay. That's a lot of money. I don't know if that's a good deal or not. I've no point of reference.
First of all, mixed functions. Poundbury was not just supposed to extend Dorchester, but it had to be an autonomous town with mixed functions like shops, offices, workplaces and houses. Why was that so important? Well, many newly built towns or city extensions are monotonous dormitory suburbs that don't offer anything else but housing. This is the result of the failed modernist idea of separation of functions. They kept housing separate, put shops in a mall and offices in an office park. But this makes these towns boring and prevents a thriving community from forming, as life happens where living, producing, business and entertainment meet. In Poundbury you will see small shops, cafes, offices and restaurants everywhere. And the town is full of at-home workshops where mostly women have created a living for themselves. 2,600 people work in Poundbury, which is really a lot.
I
That's
said
smart.
social housing is useless if you don't have social workshops, so that the people who start their life with small family and they want to be independent, if they find cheap workshop, they will do a job, an independent job.
Number 2. The walkable city. The second design secret was
I
that the
love
town would
that.
be
Oh my
walkable and
god.
attractive for pedestrians and cyclists. The town is designed in a compact way and built to offer everything close by. The sidewalks offer plenty of room for pedestrians, and there are many parks and village greens for children to play. With windy roads and slightly raised intersections, cars slow down naturally, eliminating the need for ugly and useless traffic signs. Cars
Oh,
are parked in the mews. The narrow
that's
streets
brilliant.
originally meant for carriages at the backside of houses, which you might know from London, which are designed in a similar way, slowing down traffic.
Mixed functions. Yeah, the mixed functions thing, that's sort of the opposite of a lot of big cities. Whole neighborhoods are zoned for commercial or residential, which is annoying if you want to walk somewhere to buy a sandwich. I mean, if it's not mixed function, that guarantees a really annoying commute. You know? Why did we start doing that? Why did we start doing that? Something that's gotten really popular in the States is live and work neighborhoods, where there will be these buildings that are apartments or condominiums on the top floors, or the other than the first floor. And the first floor will be shops. It's like a mall down there. I think it's catching on. I wonder if that came from Poundbury. You know? Hang on. I used to work at a place that was mixed function in Georgia called the Avalon. And it reminds me of Poundbury. If I could show you some photos. This is what it looks like. I mean, yeah, there's the movie theater. All these are apartments or condos. I think they like to call them condos. And then on the first floor are the shops. This is a more typical thing. So on the first floor, there's these shops, and up here are the condos and stuff. Actually quite nice, but very expensive. Kind of reminds me of Poundbury, like an American, not quite as traditional version of Poundbury. Okay, so that was number 1. Number 2, walkable city.
Number 2. The walkable city. The second design secret was that the town would be walkable and attractive for pedestrians and cyclists. The town is
Yeah, I love that it's walkable. I love that it's walkable. I live in Los Angeles, and the stereotype for Los Angeles is that you have to drive everywhere. That's not true. I walk wherever I can. Because when I drive, it makes me stressed out, and I get angry, and I become a bad person. Like, really quickly. It doesn't take much. It's very strange. But when I walk, it's laid back, stress-free, walking the streets. I do come across a lot of unhoused people and some neuroatypical people and some people dealing with addiction. But I've never really had a problem with them. They don't really bother me. But I'm hoping that's catching on. We're supposed to have the Olympics here in 2028, and they've decided that it's going to be a carless Olympics. If you want to go to any Olympics event, you have to ride public transportation. That's a bold move, you know? Like, requiring people to not use their own car. But I'm kind of hoping that it will cause Los Angeles to beef up the public transportation, particularly the subway or metro train. Oh, earthquake. Okay. We just had an earthquake. Yo, that's the second earthquake in like... Aftershocks. Whew. That's the second earthquake in like the past 5 days. Okay, what was I talking about? Oh yeah. If Los Angeles doesn't get demolished by an earthquake, we're gonna have the Olympics here. Okay, I'm razzled.
Designed in a compact way and built to offer everything close by. The sidewalks offer plenty of room for pedestrians, and there are many parks and village greens for children to play. With windy roads and slightly raised intersections, cars slow down naturally, eliminating the need for ugly and useless traffic signs.
Yeah.
Cars are parked in the mews, the narrow streets originally meant for carriages at the backside of houses which you might know from London, which are designed in a similar way, slowing down traffic.
Cool.
Number 3. Attractive local architecture. The third design secret was that Poundbury would not be built with generic, modernist architecture one could find all over the planet, but with architecture that is adapted to the specific charm and character of Dorset. This included using local materials, and this meant that local builders and craftsmen had to be used. Number 4.
That's great.
Affordable housing.
That's great. And it also, like, it fits the English vibe, you know? That's British. It fits the design it fits the design motif of the whole country. It looks great. It makes people feel nostalgic, I bet. It's beautiful. It's so much better than some big cement, glass, steel thing. So much better. Okay, go on.
Big charm and character of Dorset. This included using local materials, and this meant that local builders and craftsmen had to be used. Number 4.
That's great.
Affordable.
Local, using that local labor is the word I'm looking for. I'm still frazzled about this earthquake and I'm waiting for an aftershock. Do they have earthquakes in Poundbury? I don't think so. Okay.
Had to be used. Number 4. Affordable housing. The fourth secret to Poundbury's success was that the town was to offer around a third of the homes as affordable housing. After all, to create a truly vibrant and healthy, diverse community, all layers of society should be represented and have a chance to live in a place like Poundbury.
We have about 35% of social housing in town, mixed with other houses. So there is already a variety of incomes who live next to each other. And instead of having them in one zone, we distributed them higgledy-piggledy.
Higgledy-piggledy.
Number 5. Craftsmanship.
Higgledy-piggledy. We have that here, I think. When there's a new development, a certain percentage of it has to be affordable housing. Every rumble I hear is now triggering me as an aftershock. Okay, number 5, craftsmanship.
The fifth and one of the most underrated design secrets was to make the town using as much craftsmanship as possible within the budget. Most of the building industry has moved to industrial building methods, leading to a monotonous, sterile, machine aesthetic in buildings. Craftsmanship gives buildings a more humane, beautiful and soft character.
And jobs.
That often leads to higher quality as well. The prince found this incredibly important. To promote the crafts, he founded a foundation, the Prince's Foundation, which is now called the King's Foundation. This organization would train craftsmen and architects that would later work in Poundbury. 6.
I missed that part.
Craftsmen and architects that would later work is now called the King's Foundation. This organization would train craftsmen and architects that would later work in Poundbury.
It trained them too. That's great. Education, jobs. I'm trying to find the dark part of this. Like, what's the downside?
6. Sustainability. Finally, the town was supposed to be built sustainably, with sustainable building materials such as only allowing timber windows instead of UPVC windows, which are hard to repair, often end up in landfills and contain hazardous chemicals. Also, Poundbury features things like integrated bird boxes, a community orchard and even an anaerobic digestion plant that turns biomethane into electricity. But using local materials and building methods like using structural masonry so the buildings can sustain for a long time are key as well. And the beauty of the town makes sure that it is worth keeping and that people don't tear it down prematurely. because the most sustainable building is the one you don't demolish.
Oh, that's
Does this
brilliant.
mean that Poundbury is perfect?
Wait, hang on. What was that green energy thing?
Anaerobic digestion plant.
Good timing. Anaerobic digestion plant. I've never heard of that. Turning organic waste into new products. Step 1. Collect. Manure, food, and other organic waste are collected on farms and food processing facilities and delivered from waste management companies. Grab that garbage. Step 2. Digest. The waste is deposited into a digester that extracts and captures methane gas from within. Methane gas. Step 3. Distribute. The methane is then separated, cleaned, and compressed into renewable natural gas. Y'all using farts to drive on. Step 4. Use. The remaining solids are converted into organic fertilizer or compost. Yes. Does this work? Okay, that seems great.
That turns biomethane into electricity.
Great.
But using local materials and building methods like using structural masonry so the buildings can sustain for a long time are key as well. And the beauty of the town makes sure that it is worth keeping and that people don't tear it down prematurely. Because the most sustainable building is the one you don't demolish.
I like that. That's
Does
brilliant.
this mean that Poundbury is perfect? Well, of course not. For example, I believe that the asphalt paving isn't as aesthetically pleasing as it could be. But as Leon Creer noted in our interview, some corners had to be cut. Ideally, they wanted to use natural stone pavers, but that was too expensive. Extra greenery would also be another improvement. In some places, Poundbury clearly lacks some green. The first phase of Poundbury feels surprisingly green already. And in the newer parts there are some wonderful green places as well.
It's coming.
One point of critique I often hear is Queen Mother Square and its many parked cars. I understand this point
Oh,
of
it's like a
criticism
parking lot.
because it makes the square much less beautiful. But from what I've heard, underground parking simply wasn't feasible financially, and the business owners surrounding the square want their customers to be able to easily load their groceries. A final
Fair
point
enough.
of critique is that Poundbury has become exclusive or gentrified. Although places should be accessible to all income groups, I think this point is a bit unfair. A lot of effort was put into offering 35% of affordable homes in Poundbury. Also, people weren't displaced as it is a new development.
Right.
And thirdly, the premium people pay to live in Poundbury is a signal that this place works. It attracts people. So perhaps we should ask, why has it become such a commercial success? King Charles has, with the help of Leon Creer and many skilled architects, craftsmen and builders, showed the world that with vision and persistence, it's still possible in today's world to create harmonious, beautiful, sustainable places that are modern, but also respect local culture, valuable traditions and history. Even though Poundbury is a massive success, there are many property developers and municipalities who don't seem to get the message. People are desperate for authenticity, beauty and harmony. They simply don't care about experimental concepts, but they want to live in nice places. The moment that decision makers start realizing this and start building what people want, it gets much easier to build, as there will be much less opposition with happier residents and happier developers too. It will result in popular places that last longer because they are loved. And that's the key to a truly sustainable future. So this is the story about Poundbury.
Wow.
What do you think about Poundbury?
I think I
Let
want
me
to
know in
live
the
there.
comments.
Wow, y'all, Poundbury. 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 I would love to see a TV show set in Poundbury, like a Curb Your Enthusiasm style. Poundbury. It could just be called Poundbury. It's kind of a funny name because it could be a metaphor for wasting money, like you're just burying pounds in the dirt. Or it could be like if things go south in Poundbury and it becomes like a bad part of town, it could be like a red light district. Bury your pound. What am I trying to say? I don't know. I'm still razzled about that earthquake. Okay. Off topic. That was a 4.7 earthquake. The one a few days ago was 5.6. But I think this one, oh, this is showing exactly where I am, so I shouldn't show that. I mean, that's far away. Yeah, you can't tell where I am. That's basically where I am. Oh my God, it was really close. It was in Pasadena. Well, now you know where I live, right? That's basically Hollywood. That's basically where I live. I'm not going to tell you any more exact than that. Poundbury. Let's see, how much is a place to live in Poundbury? Homes for sale in Poundbury, UK. 1.8 million pounds. That's quite a place, though. Like 1.5 million pounds. Oh, let's buy this place. That's nice. Very nice. Oh, look at that kitchen. Yeah. Okay, that's quite a lot. An average price of £404,000. Well, I guess I'm not buying, so what are rent prices? Of £1,500? 1,500? 1,200? I could do that, I think. At first, this seemed very North Korea, China, building a city kind of thing, but now I get it. I think it's great. I'd like to visit there. I'd like to invest time there, not money. Anyway, this was fascinating. I didn't know anything about Poundbury. Way to go, King Chuck. This is really good. Thank you all for going through an earthquake with me and watching this with me, and I'll see you tomorrow. Later.